Ultimate Sky.
And we're
Ultimate Sky Travel. Imagine our agency doing your travel. With our premier services, we specialize in experiences, individual and group travel for leisure and business. Accomplish your bucket list, whatever you desire, wherever your imagination takes you, because you have endless possibilities. Let us help you make everlasting memories at the most epic destinations. And with our corporate travel division, experience travel that allows you to focus on your endeavors. Let Ultimate Sky Travel plan your weekend getaway for that rest and recharge. Because you need to remember yourself. Ultimate Sky Travel. Imagine our agency doing your travel.
hey, everyone. How's everyone doing? It's me, Jeanette, also known as the Travel Vet. You guys, use my headphones. This happens to be a little glorious because I'm in an airport and it's kind of loud, so you might can hear the background. But no worries, it's not going to affect our Travel Tip Tuesday today because we do have a guest. I'm going to make sure that they do most of the talking, right? But I'm going to let you guys know this is Women's History Month, right? And I came across this article that my friend actually wrote, and it was talking about women in history who have broken barriers, who have set example, like Amelia Earhart. But basically, it's surrounding about solo travel with women, right? And so I thought it was pretty amazing, and it was from the solo travel magazine that is online. I have to give kudos to them because they are absolutely a great magazine. So if you are a solo traveler, male or female, it doesn't matter. Then you definitely want to check them out because they have a wealth of information for solo travelers and connections as well. Yeah, I know I solo travel a lot, but I also have this little munchkin right here, as you guys can see this here. What airlines like to do it and go in. And I was like, I need to do this real quick because this is on time and I need to make sure I respect this time. But I met this young man on Clubhouse. Y'all know how that goes. It's the most wonderful app as far as social goes. It can reach out and touch anyone around the world. As a matter of fact, he is in Canada. Yes. And so when I tell you, we it's the love of travel, and then his love of food, because he talks about travel and food, and that's one of the things he talks about and discuss. And when I say I learn so much, Gloria, you guys know, is a foodie. Me, I just go with the flow, and I'm learning different things. And I'll taste it one time at least. I'll try something one time, and then if I like it, love it. But if not, I'm moving on. But I learned so much from him because he has some pretty interesting experiences when it comes to travel and when it comes to food. So I want to introduce to some and we introduce to others this lovely, phenomenal, I should say, handsome, right? Phenomenal, because I always used to wonder, right? Phenomenal king, like not literally, but his name is. And he's fun and he's exciting and he's a travel blogger, he's a writer. And he actually does a full-time job, which, allows him to travel too, like a rock star, where he can get most experiences and write about them. So I want to introduce to you guys to your lovely, handsome, let me go back here. Let me bring you up. Here we go. There we go. There you go. Hey,
Thank you, Dave. Thanks so much for
listen,
having
I'm telling you, I might sound like a robot. Tuesday, I sound a little robotic, so I might sound like a robot, y'all.
me. It's okay. It's part of the fun. But I wanted to say hello to everyone. Thank you so much for having me. As Janae mentioned, I'm a travel writer and influencer, I guess we'll say, and also a communications strategist. And I just really, really love travel and food, as Janae mentioned. And I was also so happy to, meet her on Clubhouse. She's one of the most, entertaining people. I mean, you all are very familiar with her. She's just full of energy and just, got an amazing sense of humor. So I'm just so glad to have met her and connected with her. And thank her so much for inviting me on to sort of talk about travel, which is one of the things I love the most in the whole wide world. So I can't wait to get started.
Yes, thank you so much for that. Thank you for honoring me with your presence and everyone else because listen, when I tell you he had got some good nuggets of asking you questions like it's the favorite it's the best experience and all that other stuff, but y'all don't have to take it from me. Travel insurance, that's the best tip you can give you. Travel insurance, I tell you that all the time. So don't get me. That was one of his best travel tips he dropped gems for you. So, King, you wrote about 10 phenomenal women who traveled around, broke barriers doing so. And it was quite phenomenal. And it was for Women's History Month. But what got me was, I was just curious, what made you want to see an article, geared towards women, pioneers in the travel space, doing what they do best, breaking barriers and going through cities.
Hmm. Yeah, a great question, Janae. I mean, once again, you wouldn't expect a man to write an article like this, I guess. In part because I work with two extraordinary women who run the solo travel blog that you spoke of earlier, and their names are Janice Waugh and Tracy Nesbitt, and they themselves are just extraordinary trailblazing travelers themselves. And so that that definitely helps when you have that kind of inspiration around you. And also it's something I realized, it's really about time. I mean, we've heard that a lot these days, is that it's just about time to celebrate women. Because when you think about it, you know so much about male adventurers and travelers in history. I mean, and it's, if you ask anyone to name some, it's usually pretty easy because all you have to think about is things like the first person to go to the moon, the first person to, climb Mount Everest, the first to discover, sail to America. Like those, the names are out there and they're more common. But if I were to just go up to a random person, and even if I went up to 100 people and asked them, name a famous female adventurer, a female traveler, I think most people would struggle to even come up with one name. And it's not like there aren't any, it's just that they aren't talked about it as much. And someone that you mentioned earlier, Amelia Earhart, she probably is the most well known female adventurer out there. And, maybe if we're lucky, I think a third of the people, when questioned, might actually be able to come up with her name. But beyond that, I really have very little confidence that anyone could name a second woman to add to that list. And so that's one of the things that I definitely wanted to, address and to, let's just, especially, let's celebrate it. Let's, talk about them more, and let's talk about more, about these women who help, sort of expand our understanding of the world, because there are definitely a lot of them out there. And so those are generally some of the a little bit of the thought process that led me to come up with the idea in the first place to write the article, and to actually go about and actually write the article.
Listen, that was amazing because you really did put it on the head. With you said a lot of people would always go, to the male dominant, accomplishment, and when it comes to extraordinary things in travel, going to the moon, selling, finding a new land. That Amelia Earhart actually did that as a trivia travel question. I think about a week ago, and I was like, hey. Who is it? It's good. Like you said, a lot of people were aware of her pioneer, and I kind of gave them very little nuggets. Like, she was the first one to do this. The only female among the male-dominant industry to take her plane. I didn't even mention the plane or anything like that, but they got it, and I was like, oh, that was awesome. And so what I started doing was I got one more travel trivia to go, and I took it from your article. And don't worry, everyone, I will post the article here so you guys can do this more to see it as well. But King, when you wrote this article, I know you have to do a lot of research, for because that was actually something that I wasn't even aware of. I was like, oh, who's this person? And so I'm not telling you guys this is a spoiler alert. You guys go read it for yourself. But it was amazing to know that, hey, I was still learning. And again, you kicked it from my mouth, my thought, I should say. And I was like, dude, there's a guy. but he's bragging about women. So, but now I understand. So when you got started on this article, was it pretty simple and easy for you to write, or did you kind of know the direction you were going in when you first started?
Oh, I'm sorry that I missed that last part there.
Did you kind of know the direction that this was going in when you first started writing?
Um, I sort of, I mean, the idea about it was just step one, find, you know, these historical women, and then step two, sort of talk about the accomplishments that they or highlight the accomplishments that they had just because you know it obviously wasn't really well known. And when I started going down that path, it was tricky because not that I had trouble finding women that did extraordinary things, but I had trouble narrowing down because we had decided that 10 to recognize 10 people, and that would just be it's just not that people, that there weren't more than 10 that deserve to be recognized, but just to keep it manageable. And so we decided on 10. And once again, just narrowing it down to 10 was really hard because there are just so many people that have done just amazing things and that you just wouldn't even believe that were possible. Like, I mean, there was a woman who did a solo travel trip around the world in the 1800s. I'm like, that's crazy. I mean, that's hard enough to do now. I mean, even with other people, but to do it alone as a female back in those days when it really was not accepted as a societal norm to be able to do that. And so those are the kinds of things that you're like, wow. And there's just story after story like that. So how do you decide? And it really wasn't an easy process to do that. And then the second thing I definitely wanted to try as well, or we wanted to as a collective, was to try to make sure that we have good representation, because the historical records on all these are very heavily weighed for people of European descent. And so it was very important for us to try to make sure that we include people from all over the world. And so that was actually a really difficult thing as well, because while the explorers, I mean, the female explorers might exist, it was just hard to find the information about them. And so I am glad that we were able to find three women that we could include on the list that were from, that were not of European descent. And so that definitely makes me happy. And hopefully, when we do this list again, in the future, that we'll have an easier time with it. But I think that those were definitely the two biggest challenges that I had. And, but it was, I mean, it was, once again, it was just amazing, just finding out all the amazing things that these women did that, like I said, even I would have trouble doing today. So hopefully, yeah, if you're interested, check out the article, and maybe you'll just be as amazed as I am, or I was, or yeah, I am. So that.
Absolutely, absolutely. There is one thing. You said Amelia Earhart, she's still around the world and she's by herself. A lot of women are very timid when it comes to travel, even today. And you pointed it out. That was then. It was hard, like way hard,
Yeah.
harder than it is today. So I want people, to really think about that. And when you think about, that article, when you read this article, think about how difficult it was for them. And we have come so far now when it comes to the travel for women. And so you can do it. Like, don't let, just the little small things, as I would like to, the little hurdles, they can easily be jumped over, And the time I said, it's harder to get a group together than it is just to go by yourself. Do you solo travel a lot, or do you go with a group?
I'm sorry.
Do you solo
Oh,
travel a lot, or do you go with group?
Um, I generally now probably do more solo traveling than, I mean, it's one of those weird things where I just discovered it a few years ago. And once you discover the freedom that solo travel gives you, you kind of become hooked on it, because it's not that I don't enjoy traveling with others. It's just sometimes the process of trying to plan a trip with X number of people it just becomes so frustrating because everyone has it just sometimes it just becomes a little bit, yeah, overwhelming. So for things that I know that the people, I mean, my group of friends that I travel with that aren't really as important to them, I'll just kind of go and kind of actually the way that all started was that I kind of just decided I wanted to go somewhere, and I just got tired of waiting for people. And so I just said, look, I'm going to be at this place at this time, so if you guys want to join, come. If not, that's fine too. So, and I find a lot of solo travelers usually end up starting that way, where they just get tired of waiting for other people to, decide whether or not they want to make plans or whether they want to book that plane ticket, whether they want to book and it's just, what, I'm just going to do this and you can come and join my party if you like. So,
I love it. I love it. 'Cause that's absolutely true. See, this is not the only articles you have written. You have other publications out there. I got a chance to look on your LinkedIn. So you guys, I'll put his LinkedIn contact information in. If you go look at the previous publications that he has written, though, I got to share one a few of them actually. And you're very good writer, and your experiences and what you actually do makes it come to life. So if you are thinking about, getting out, traveling the world, you're just not sure, read about his experiences, read about the things that he talks about. I did ask him a question, and he responded in reference to a trip that he took to South America. See, this is going to be my closeout. Can you share that experience with the audience?
oh, yes, I think the experience you're talking about is when I was in Brazil, where I was in Rio de Janeiro. And so, for any of you who haven't been there or aren't familiar with Brazil, there are areas of town, we'll call it, or communities that they refer to as favelas. And essentially, what it is they are shanty towns. And unfortunately, they are the poorest districts that you'll find in the country. Unfortunately, everyone there is just way below the poverty line. They just kind of they struggle very much, and so that's why these communities usually end up being very much involved in the drug trade, because they're just unfortunately there just really aren't a lot of opportunities for them to escape the situations that they're in. So I went to Rio and ended up staying in a hostel in one of these communities, not knowing exactly what I was getting myself into. But I mean, for the first 24 hours, I definitely thought I was going to die. And had I known what I was getting myself into initially, I don't think that I would have gone. And but I was there with a native Brazilian, and so I did have someone who had been in these communities before, and who obviously spoke the language, so that really helps. But we still thought we were going to die. So, but you know what? After we started getting to know, because obviously the people that ran the hostel, they lived in the community, and after we started talking to people and getting to know people in the community, and also to get around in the community, they have the locals running motorcycle taxi services, and so you start using the local services, you start getting to know them. And so after a while, we actually felt really comfortable in there. And I know, like, you may have heard that there's a lot of crime in Brazil, and especially in Rio. And there is. I mean, there is a lot of petty crime, and unfortunately, that is part of the reflection of the fact that a lot of people are struggling, and so. But after a while, we actually felt safer in these neighborhoods that were run by the drug cartels than we were on the streets of Rio, just because one of the things as well is that obviously, unfortunately, a lot of people that do commit these crimes are from the favelas, but they are also less likely, hopefully, to do it in their own neighborhoods, or at least not with people they know. And after a while, when they got to know us, I think word went out that, okay, don't kill that guy, he seems okay. Or no, the gringo. I knew every time I heard the word gringo, they were talking about me. So I figured,
Yeah.
after a while, yeah, they're like, don't kill the gringo, he's fine. So um, and just to learn about their stories. I mean, that's the one thing I do love about travel is learning about other people's stories and just, getting to know the people, learning about their story, learning about their day to day, just, the day to day struggles they have, and just kind of realizing that everyone has a story and it's all really interesting. It just helps to sort of, enlighten you about everything. And so, but based on my story, one thing I will have to say, I don't necessarily recommend staying in a favela if you go and visit Brazil, not unless you have a guide. I mean, make sure that you have someone who can tell you what to do and where to go, and just make sure that you don't die. So, because they are very, very, very dangerous. I mean, even the police won't go in there, without, very heavily armed escorts. So it's one of those things where do your research, make sure you go with caution. But once again, it was a beautiful, beautiful experience once I overcame the fear of dying.
Listen, I'm glad you shared that story because one, it was about the experience. I always tell them travel is about not so much about the destination, but it's about the experience. But then being safe is also a big aspect of solo travel. If you're going to go somewhere, make sure you check out, the boxes. I always tell you guys to go to the state.gov site, the travel site, and make sure you enroll in steps, But what King said about getting a guide, knowing someone there, or getting connections, you can join Facebook groups. Facebook groups in those destinations of people who travel, even expats who are in that particular country who are from the US or even Canada, that you can connect with, and learn some things from. That's what I did before I moved to Costa Rica. And it didn't feel like I didn't know anybody when I came my first time. I met them all online, and then we got to meet in person, just like I got to meet. I went to meet King when I came to Toronto in December, but I'm gonna come back, and I'm like, hey, are you back? So that's what it's all about. But that was a great tip. King, thank you so much for sharing with us, sharing your article, sharing your information. Is there any last shares or tips you want to share with the audience before you take off?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Is there any more last minute shares, tips you want to share with the audience before we take off?
Yeah. Just, I mean, in this, if anyone is curious about solo travel and wants to learn more about solo travel safety, solotravelerworld.com is the blog that I wrote for there, and so they got lots of great tips, and that's a great place to start. But of course, feel free to reach out to me as well if you have any questions. You find me on Instagram at traveleat.drink, or on YouTube at Travel Eat Drink as well. But yeah, but the most important thing to remember about solo travel safety, or safety in general, just behave the same way you would at home. Because oftentimes I think people get into trouble on their holidays because they start acting in a way that's different than how they would at home. So if at home, if you are cautious, if you look around, make sure you're safe in your surroundings, you don't, do silly things that'll put you in an unsafe position. Just do those exact same things while you're traveling, and you'll be fine for the most part. And also do your research before you go to your destinations. And if you know people that have been there before, ask for their advice as well. But once again, just kind of keep your head screwed on straight, and most 99% of the time you'll be completely fine.
Yes, indeed. And I will make sure that I put the link for you guys in the comments because I know how you guys are. You want to push the button, so it doesn't matter if I put it on the screen. You actually want to push the link, so I will do that for you. Hey, thank you so much for joining us today. I truly do appreciate you so very much. And everyone else, you know what we like. You like likes, you like hearts, and you like sharing. So sharing as loyal, okay? And because I'm holding on to the tech phones, I can't do my virtual hug, but I'm sending you virtual love because, we love you and there's absolutely nothing to do but to love us back. And here's a hug for you guys. Please, one hand has the phone and one hand has it. Okay? So with that, you guys take care. I will see you guys same time, same back channel next week on Travel Tip Tuesday. Bye bye.
Okay, thank you. Bye bye.